Ryan Bingham has a very specific job. He goes all around the country, doing what other men try their best to avoid, firing people. A job well done for him means one more person who hates his guts. Companies hire him so that their consciences stay clean. His current prey is Steve, who has worked for 7 years for a company. Ryan is a professional. He knows exactly what to say and when to say it. Therefore, by the end of the interview, Steve is calm. But there's more to his calmness. He's holding something back. We see him slowly approaching the door while Ryan advises him to exercise and start a routine. Finally, before Steve leaves, he expresses his desire to get in touch with him. But as it seems, Ryan is prepared for that question too. With no intention of talking with him ever again, he assures him that they will contact him later. Later that day, he packs his bags with inhuman precision and returns up in the air, among the clouds, where his home is. He's comfortably seated in the next scene. While other people loathe and fear flying, he looks like a falcon on its way to hunting down his other prey. This is when a flying attendant comes up to him with the weirdest question. She asks if he'd like cancer. Ryan has to make her repeat herself a couple of times until he understands that she meant cancer rather than cancer. He has a speaking engagement that evening. Standing there talking, he expresses the importance of his main value, being light. People all around him keep adding weight to their lives until moving becomes a terrible labor for them. The stuff that makes up his life fits in a backpack, and he encourages the people in the room to lose all their weight too. He calls his office later that day to find out that his sister Kara called about his sister's wedding. But these kinds of family matters are Ryan's last priorities. He also has the invitation to speak at GoalQuest in Vegas, and the latter is the information that grabs his attention. The man on the other end transfers him to Craig Gregory, then one of his seniors. He tells Ryan that back in Omaha, the work is raging, so he needs him there by the end of the week. This is not going to be his regular work week. Game-changing events are taking place. That night, he's in Dallas. In the quiet bar of his elite hotel, he notices a woman named Alex playing with her car key. This little piece of steel helps him have a conversation with her. They talk of the elite things and the little details about them in a way that only people like them could. After several witty lines are exchanged, Alex joins him, and they start taking out all the credit cards that they have in their wallets. The little round table is soon filled with dozens of cards that only the people of their status have access to. But there is one single card that turns Alex on the most. Its exquisite surface is made out of pure graphite, and the writing on it says, "Concierge Key." It yells out his owner's status, the status that half-jokingly turns the woman on. So, after a brief but potent back and forth, alcohol comes into play. Everything changes after that. The mask of exquisiteness and competence is torn off, and intimacy rises. Now the real flirting begins as they share what they've done while sliding among the clouds inside a plane. And so, that's it. In the next scene, they make their way to his room. After all the steam is out, they realize that one night isn't enough for them. The intimacy that they found today is too firm to be temporary, so they open up their laptops to see where and when their schedules make space for their reunion. They find out that they can meet in Miami this month. So, in one theatrical motion, they close their computers. Alex goes back to her room, and they kiss goodbye, knowing that this is only the beginning of their long-term partnership. The next morning, while doing his normal routine of handing out his cards, checking in at airports, receiving polite greetings, and choosing ties, he gets a phone call from his sister, Kara. Somehow she knows that Ryan's going to be in Vegas, so she asks him to do a little family business for her, a small favor. He only has to get some photos for his sister Julie's wedding. Even this small business is a drag for him, but he'll try his best. Being in one place with his family is the worst thing that can happen to him, so he avoids it at any cost. Back in Omaha, he receives a package. Inside is a clipped picture of his sister and her fiancé on a piece of cardboard, a material for the photos. Julie wants it to be in front of tourist attractions around the world, so it will seem like they traveled around the globe together. The sight of a settled couple is anything but awe-inspiring for him. Later that day, he goes to the office, where people like him are gathered. It's a really special and rare occasion. Their boss starts explaining the reasoning behind this grand summoning. It seems like every business is failing in America. Industries die one after another, and so now is the time for Ryan's company to thrive, like a flock of vultures after a war. Their fairly new employee from Cornell, named Natalie, has some ideas of how to maneuver in this situation. She directs their attention to a single word, global. It's a combination of two words, global and local. She says that the way their company works is inefficient and suggests that they stop putting an enormous amount of resources into traveling their employees. Instead, she proposes online meetings and demonstrates one in front of the staff. Suddenly, Ryan's whole life is endangered. He goes to talk with Craig in private after the meeting, confronting this terrible idea. There is dignity in the way he does his job. In person and directly by looking his victims in the eye before passing the sentence. Even in doing jobs like this, one might remain honorable, but not after this transition. Suddenly, before they can talk it out, Natalie enters the room, and Ryan invites her in. The audacity she has to come in and stir things up is infuriating. This little girl thinks that she knows better. Ryan attempts to prove her incompetence by commanding her to fire him as if she were talking from the screen of a computer. Craig interfered to stop this act, but Natalie is eager to prove herself. 3 times he checks her method, and 3 times it fails. Ryan is too experienced in this job. He knows all the objections and all the types of reactions. So he rains them down on an experienced Natalie, proving that she's only an insolent girl who scarcely knows his business. In the following scene, Craig comes into his office. Before he leaves, he makes Ryan understand that he can maintain his work method for a little longer if he so wishes, but on one condition. He has to take Natalie with him, like an apprentice, and show her the reality of their job. Ryan would sooner die, or worse, be with his family than travel with this brat, but all he can do now is yield. Later that day, Ryan struggles to fit the cardboard into his bag. This is the first time he has to face that problem. Something doesn't fit his lifestyle, and he will have to adapt to it and be flexible. From the window of the airport, he glances at Natalie saying goodbye to her boyfriend, a sight that almost makes him gag. Later, he understands that the situation with Natalie is even worse than he anticipated. She's dragging huge luggage with her, something that will take a week of their time for nothing. So, before they fly, he makes her rearrange her stuff, sending most of it to the trash. Finally, Natalie is led to understand that behaving in airports is a huge part of their job, an art in itself that you must master. While in the air, Natalie rattles on her keyboard as if she were mad at it. It seems like she's writing a script for all the possible answers and reactions, but Ryan assures her that there's no point in that. The thing that they do, in truth, is different from what they are selling. He will show it to her in practice in a little while. When the plane lands, he receives a call from Alex. She's a little concerned that Ryan didn't call. Ryan says he was worried about manners, but Alex assures him to quit worrying about what's appropriate with her. He should think of her as himself, only with a female body. This last sentence sets fire to his insides immediately. Finally, she agrees to accelerate her work so that there will be room for their reunion. After that, Natalie and Ryan go about their business. There are quite a few employees that they have to deal with. Ryan instructs her to watch and listen while he does the job. As Ryan conducts the interviews, it's becoming more and more apparent that this batch is giving him quite a hard time. Even Natalie sees fit to interfere a few times. Nonetheless, Ryan still manages to flawlessly reach his goal. Finally, they have to deal with one guy, who shows them pictures of his children. He has responsibilities, kids with asthma, a mortgage, and food to put on the table. How can he become unemployed now? This must be the toughest objection, articulated in a manner that Ryan has never heard since we saw him hesitating for the first time. Natalie starts talking, but the man puts an end to her memorized speech. Ryan is quiet for a while, arranging a game plan in his head. The most important thing for this man is his children and what they are going to say about this. So, finally, he decides to startle him by saying that his children have zero admiration for him. Ryan sees in his resume that this man used to study French culinary arts. It was his dream, yet he caught a scent of money here in this hollow company, so he sold his soul to it. Children do not admire people like that. Ryan got him. The man is carefully weighing his words and finally concludes that he's right. He knows that this should be a wake-up call for him, so he accepts reality as it is. Even Natalie is wordless and impressed. Later that evening, when they have lunch, Ryan lets her know his secret plan, the plan that he didn't even share with Alex. But Alex didn't ask, and Natalie is eager to get to the bottom of it, so he tells him. The miles that he covers are the most important for him. He has a goal in mind that he hasn't reached yet, to cover 10 million miles. There are only 7 people on Earth who have done that. It's weird for Natalie that men would sacrifice their whole lives to reach such goals. She reckons that the reason for it lies in the fact that they are unable to have children. And of course, hearing this assures Ryan that there is little point in arguing with her. She's completely the opposite of Alex, the woman who would effortlessly grasp why he longs to fulfill that goal. They spend the night in separate rooms, and the next day they go out to take pictures for Ryan's sister's wedding. Natalie helps him do it, holding the camera and telling him where to put the cardboard. She's interested. Why would somebody want to take a fake photo here, of all places? And Ryan wonders why Natalie is so ignorant as to not know the importance of the building behind her. But those are the matters that they will never manage to agree on. In Wichita, after an aggressive outburst of their next prey, Natalie asks him to let her fire the next one. Little did she know what was ahead of her. The woman is sitting confidently and calmly in front. Natalie attempts to sweeten her words and lay a beautiful future across her eyes, but the woman makes her quit this action immediately. She wants to be realistic, and after she demands to hear the bullet points of what they are offering her, she indifferently states that her plan includes using a certain bridge as a remedy. Natalie rushes outside to calm down in the next scene. She might have just seen a death sentence for somebody. She sits down, breathing heavily, wondering whether the woman spoke truly. But Ryan assures her that people tend to get overly emotional and say things that they don't mean when they are fired. This is what they do. They help people when they are the most brittle emotionally. Finally, Natalie is ready to go back in. Kansas City, Tulsa, Des Moines, and Miami are their next destinations. Time flies, and gradually, Natalie gets used to the complications of her job while Ryan continues living his life in peace. In Miami, he has yet another speaking engagement. This time, he talks about the weight of all the people in one's life: co-workers, neighbors, friends, close friends, parents, spouses, children, and so forth. The philosophy of losing weight includes losing people too, for the relationships in our lives are the heaviest loads that we carry. And the bigger the load, the faster we die. We are not meant to carry loads, we are meant to be leaner, swifter, and better fit to survive. Natalie is there as Ryan speaks these words, a total obscenity from her point of view. After the talk, she receives a message. She looks at it calmly for a while, but soon, a scared and desperate expression is engraved on her face. In the following scene, while they are traveling back to their hotel, they discuss the value of marriage. Naturally, this is not a subject on which they can agree. Ryan sees no value in marriage, and he will never get involved in such a relationship. Natalie attempts to sell the idea to him, but even hearing the word love as one of the primary reasons to get married makes him laugh. The disagreement continues as they enter the hotel. Finally, after Ryan obliterates the argument of not dying alone, suddenly Natalie's lips start twitching, but not from anger. She tells him that her boyfriend, Brian, has left her. Before Ryan could do anything, the weirdest wailing you have ever heard fills the hall as she stamps on the floor repeatedly. Brian tries to comfort her, hugging her and looking around the hall at the same time to find some help. But the girl keeps on crying, like a child throwing a tantrum. To his relief, Ryan sees Alex descending the stairs, smiling wearily. As she's introduced to her, Natalie tries her best to control herself. With a trembling voice, she assures Alex that she's fine. But Alex knows what will really make her feel better. And so, she suggests grabbing some drinks. Then Natalie pours her heart out. She's in pain. She always thought that by the time she was 23, she would have been married. She has all these deadlines in her head, and the last thing she needed now was this breakup over the text message. The elders in front of her, however, give her a sneak peek into what it's like to be older. You quit falling and following the unworthy men, and you certainly lose the deadlines. The standards that you have towards men, especially the silly ones like the number of syllables in names, will also change and fade away as soon as she hits 30. Alex tells Natalie her requirements when it comes to choosing a partner. It almost seems like she's talking about Ryan, who likes kids and wants to settle. And so, in the end, Natalie realizes that as you get older, things that you value the most change. Finally, she bitterly concludes that marrying a career doesn't sound so bad. Settling down isn't something that she wants to do anymore. But Alex assures her that being with someone really special won't feel like settling down at all. In the end, before they go to their rooms, the elders tell Natalie about their plans for the evening. There is a party in the hotel for the tech conference. Naturally, they are not allowed to attend it, but Natalie is both excited and confused when she finds out that they are planning to crash it. The elders are talking hilariously in unison, trying to make it sound different, but it is what it is. When they pick their fake badges, Natalie is extremely anxious. It's her first time doing something like this, so finally, she turns out to be Jennifer Chu for the evening. But as the elders reckon, she'll be fine nonetheless. They turned out to be right. After years or maybe even a life of self-restriction, Natalie finally breaks free. She drinks, dances, and gets to know a guy named Dave, who hilariously meets all of his silly requirements. She gets more and more drunk as the party progresses. And when it cools down and the people start to stream out of the dance floor, Ryan gives Alex the keys to his place. They scan the hall then and find out that Natalie is not here anymore. In the next scene, we see her singing karaoke with Dave cooling his temples with the beer bottle. Both are extremely drunk. The camera zooms out, and we understand that the party continued on a yacht. By the dock, Ryan and Alex are sitting, cooling their feet, and talking about Alex's home. That's what differentiates them. Alex has a home, while Ryan has none, and this difference may be one of the reasons why Alex developed a liking for his personality. However, the conversation swiftly shifts toward his backpack philosophy. It seems like Alex Googled him, as any modern girl would. She's not bothered by it, she's only not sure where that philosophy came from. But it's been so long ago that Ryan doesn't even remember it, and frankly, it doesn't even matter anymore because lately he's been thinking about emptying his backpack so that he has space for certain people. Alex understands exactly what he means, and she kisses him for it. The chemistry between them is so potent that the electricity on the yacht fails to withstand it. The whole place sinks into darkness. They return to the shore with a supply boat. In the morning, when Ryan wakes up, he sees Alex already dressed and ready. It seems like she has to fly to Cincinnati. For the first time, he prefers being with somebody rather than by himself. This feeling goes against everything that he's about. It may be that this relationship is a bigger threat to his life than the changes that are taking place in his company. But fear is the last thing he feels right now. He only feels sad that the woman in front of him is leaving. Ryan tries his best not to show this sadness, of course, but Alex's keen eye notices it right away. She promises to text him later so that they can swap schedules again. And so, after she leaves, Ryan is left alone, smiling, knowing that he'll still feel her presence, even though she'll be in Cincinnati in a few hours. Later that day, he and Natalie shared how their evenings went. Natalie is a little ashamed of herself, but she shouldn't be. Anyone should be able to cut loose. As they make their way toward the dock to take yet another picture for Ryan's sister, Natalie asks her about her relationship with Alex. If she's in Chicago, why would he not visit? Ryan replies that their relationship is casual, and that is the reason, but it emblazes her curiosity, and even makes her mad. Why wouldn't he give this woman a chance at something real? How can he not think about the future with someone? Ryan tries to oppose her with his philosophy and experience. She'll lose this perspective when she gets old. But Natalie argues back that he built his whole stupid philosophy so that it would justify his avoiding real human connection. And now, when a real woman comes along and manages to grasp his heart and go along with his lifestyle, he calls her casual. A 12-year-old, that's what he is. Natalie storms off, leaving the cardboard picture on the dock. Suddenly, a wind blows, and Ryan sees it falling into the water. He tries to reach it, but goes too far and ends up in the water himself. In the following scene, he dries up the cardboard and leaves for the airport. The picture is almost ruined by water. When they reach Detroit, their next destination, Natalie and Ryan travel silently toward their next victims. They get escorted to an office where a certain employee should be waiting for them to hear dreadful news. However, when they reach the room, Ryan sees a single computer on the desk and hears his boss speaking from the screen. He informs them that the interview that they are going to conduct today is going to be remote. They have to change the way they work at some point. And so, as Ryan yields and asks for some time to prepare, Craig tells him that Natalie is going to take over today. Ryan isn't so sure at first, and he hates being challenged, but there's nothing he can do other than wish Natalie luck and give her some advice. Finally, Natalie settles down in front of the computer and speaks to the 57-year-old man who's sitting in the other room across the hall. It's tough to speak for Natalie, especially when she knows that the encouragement she provides has nothing in common with reality. She knows what she should say, that everyone who built an empire sat where he sits right now. But this man in front of her is doomed, and all she can do is plant the seeds of false hope in him. But Natalie fails in that endeavor as the man shifts from being angry to being sad. He starts crying, while Natalie fights to hold back her tears as well. She can't be weak right now when her boss and her senior coworker are closely watching her performance, but the sight of a powerless man in front of her is hard to look at. Finally, the man leaves with the plan and walks off, disoriented and desperate. Ryan encourages her, saying that she did a great job, and offers her a hand. But Natalie takes a deep breath and states that she'll continue working alone. In the following scene, Ryan talks to Craig on the phone. When he's done, he turns to Natalie and breaks the news to her. Craig thought she did great too, but their odyssey is over. They are going back home for good. It's partially her fault, Natalie realizes, so in the next scene, after apologizing for her behavior on the dock, she encourages him that living at home is better than he thinks. Suddenly, Ryan puts an end to this conversation, turns back, and tells Natalie that he has to catch another flight. Vegas is where he lands next. In front of the pyramid, someone is holding the cardboard while he takes a picture. It's Alex, of course. It seems like their schedules intersected once more. Out of nowhere, Ryan asks her if she would like to go to Wisconsin. For a moment, Alex likes the offer, but when she realizes what it really means, she quickly says no. Ryan wants her to be his 1+ for his sister's wedding. And when Alex hears that Ryan, for the first time, doesn't want to be a single guy at the wedding and that she's the only one whom he wants to be by his side, she agrees. And so they arrive at the hotel in Milwaukee in the following scene. For the first time, Ryan has to wait in line, and as he and Alex are about to enter their room, he hears someone calling his name. Ryan turns his head and finds his sister, Kara, holding laundry. When she assumes that they are dating, they both start laughing awkwardly. Dating is not how one can describe their relationship. And even Kara understands that calling someone your boyfriend at their age is weird. Finally, Ryan asks about her. It seems like she and her husband are separating, and that's why she's staying at this hotel. That evening, they arrive at the rehearsal dinner. The bride rushes to her brother and introduces herself to Alex. Both sisters are so nice to her. She introduces her future husband to them as well, Jim, who seems like a funny and nice guy. Finally, Ryan shows him the pictures he got for her and takes them to the wall full of pictures depicting the future wife and husband in a variety of places. As Ryan adds his ones to the wall, he discovers something. Even though he has been to all those places, it makes no difference. It seems like his sister and her new husband invested most of their money in real estate, so they failed to gather finances for their honeymoon. That's why they decided to get the photos. This way they got to stay in one place and still manage to fulfill one of the main reasons why people travel, getting pictures. The way they are happy to be in one place is both confusing and lovely for Ryan. After Ryan spends some time with Jim and Alex gets to know the sisters better, the siblings gather outside. Guests have already left, and they are about to depart as well. He asks Julie if she has anyone to walk her down the aisle. Maybe he realized today that he would like to be closer to his family. However, Julie tells him with a forcefully soft voice and awkward gaze that Jim's uncle is going to do it. It's all right for Ryan. He says that he only wanted to check if she was covered, but from his voice, it's evident that he wanted to be the one doing it. Getting closer to his sisters after being distant for far too long might be much more difficult than Ryan thinks. In the following scene, he and Alex sneak into his old school. It is as if Ryan is walking her through his childhood and adolescence. On a basketball court, as kids enter for routine practice, he receives a call from Kara. They are having a meltdown on the other end of the call. It's Jim, and they need him. Ryan casually agrees to be there, and they quickly leave. Once he gets to where they are, he sees Julie dressed in her wedding dress, her face red from tears. Kara comes up to him, saying that Jim's having cold feet. Ryan has to turn him around, especially when he's doing those motivational speeches. But Ryan argues that his motivational speeches are about avoiding commitment, not embracing it. Kara didn't know it, so she was surprised by the absurdity of his philosophy. But now isn't the time to argue about it. Kara knows that Ryan wants to be there for Julie, and this is his chance to prove himself as a brother. And so, in the next scene, he wearily approaches Jim, reading some children's books in solitude. He objects that last night, when he was struggling to sleep alone, he saw everything in the future and concluded that there was no point. He has no idea what he's starting. Ryan, on the other hand, has no idea how to deny that. He says words, but after they leave his lips, he realizes that he agrees with him. Whatever we do, eventually we end up in the same dread, and marriage can be painful sometimes. At this point, Jim is happy that he found someone who shares his thoughts, and Kara shares a confused look with Ryan. He knows he must turn him around. He already has his sympathy and attention. For a moment, there is silence, and after that, Ryan finally manages to accomplish his mission, saying that the happiest moments are created in the company of others. Being alone won't save you from the inevitable demise, so you might as well take a shot in life with a co-pilot since everybody needs one. And so, in the next scene, Jim makes up with Julie, asking to be his co-pilot, and Ryan is finally welcomed back into his family. The wedding went by beautifully. We can even suspect that Ryan got to know a thing or two about human connections, strong bonds, holding hands, and shared happiness. However, it's time for Alex to leave in the next scene. The next time they meet, it's going to be in Omaha. From now on, Ryan is a settled man. After hearing this, we see a slight glimpse of seriousness and doubt in Alex's tone and expression that came with the realization that Ryan is changing. But finally, she smiles and leaves, making him promise to call whenever he feels lonely. She knows something is going to change in their relationship. That day, Ryan travels to Omaha and resumes his work from the office. Natalie shows him around the new place and helps him settle down. And so, he is forced to work from a computer and sleep in one bed every night, something that he has never done before. A company named GoalQuest invites him to speak in front of its audience. Speaking about his late backpack theory has become almost impossible for him. Nonetheless, he appears on stage and starts with his speech. Words come out of his mouth, but after a few sentences, he realizes that something isn't just right. He doesn't believe in anything that he's saying. So abruptly, he just stops and rushes out of the stage, then out of the building, and then out of Omaha. Traveling has never been so important to him. He flies to Chicago, hastily rents a car, and rushes to Alex. He rings a bell and steps back with the expression of a man who's about to surprise somebody. But eventually, after the door is opened, Ryan is the one surprised. He sees Alex looking terribly unhappy with his arrival. He sees her kids and hears her husband asking who's at the door. So he steps back and walks out of the door that is already closing. Like a heavy and tired bird without a nest, he spends the night drinking in solitude and leaves for Chicago the next morning, still in shock. On a train, he receives a call from her. Knowing that it's not going to be a simple conversation, he answers. He's the one who should be frustrated and mad, but somehow Alex has an irritated tone, so he asks why he didn't know that she had a family. It's not clear to him yet that, especially lately, the two had completely different views of the relationship that they were engaged in. And so he listens as the woman on the other side articulates it for him. She has a real life back home, and he was being an escape from it, a source of freedom and lightness, a game she could have played without fully committing to it. So in the future, if he would like to see her, he should call her. Ryan is devastated. Throughout his whole career, he's been saying dreadful things to people, and this is how he must receive one, over the phone. Without saying a single word, he hands them up. Sitting in a place, Ryan bitterly reflects that throughout his whole life, he's been striving towards becoming a game, an escape from reality. And as if life were playing a joke, the flying attendant starts announcing something. A certain someone sitting in this place has traveled 10 million miles. People clap as the captain approaches him and sits next to him. It seems like he's the youngest one to reach 10 million so far. There have only been 7 people in the world who have reached that number. It's a wonder how he found the time. The captain is fascinated with him. He's eager to have a conversation. But for Ryan, all of this is a cruel joke. He's confused and helpless, wanting to run away, but nobody can run from a plane. After getting a special limited card and receiving appreciation from the captain, Ryan tells him that this conversation has been played out millions of times in his head, but he can no longer recall what he wanted to say. The captain replies that it happens to the best of us, and to start a conversation, she asks him where he's from. This is a question that strikes the hardest. He's from here, the road. In the following scene, he's calling the airport to transfer enough of his miles to Julie and Jim that will allow them to travel around the whole globe. Suddenly, the door of his office opens, and Craig comes in with news. There's been an accident. After getting fired, one woman took on the bridge. After hearing this, Natalie quit and went to Omaha without mentioning her destination. Ryan ought to call her. Finally, Craig tells Ryan that all the changes are undone. He needs him back in the air. We find out that Natalie went to San Francisco to get the job she always wanted. She's being interviewed in the next scene. The CEO is fascinated by the fact that she chose to fire people for a living instead of working here when she graduated at the top of her class. However, he has no objections left. She hires her because of a certain recommendation letter from her late co-worker, a rootless man who has no nest and no place to go other than the road. A man who resumes his old life with a reforged purpose. And so, if, after going back to your spouse, you glance at a slightly brighter star in the sky, know that it's Ryan, going about his business.